Today we have a special edition of Best Ball Bros. What I'm coining the strongest man in best ball is here today. And he's a little bit different of a guest. Normally, it's us idiot streamers, us drafters, players, analysts, all that kind of stuff. Today, we get a special behind the scenes look at one of the influencers from within Underdog Fantasy, our leader in the best ball space, Nick Rudman. You probably see him mostly on Twitter talking about how awesome the Patriots are or doing bench press reps. But he's a lot more than that. And I'm going to give him some shit about some of that other stuff. And we're going to dive into a whole lot more with Nick Rudman, GM of Fantasy from Underdog Fantasy. Welcome to another episode of Best Ball Bros.
Give me your click, but you don't have to listen.
Oh, you had Gabriel Davis at 67%? Oh, sweetie, that's so hot.
Can I curse on the show?
Absolutely.
I was so fucking bad.
How can I lose? And the answer was by starting Allen Robinson over Jamar Chase.
Well, last year kind of attached myself to Trey Sermon, which hasn't worked out too well.
Bill, if you ever listen to this, I love you. He's just such a boomer now that it's painful.
I did think I was going to play in the NBA when I was like 6.
I'm going to tell Evan Silva they're bored. Went to the bathroom and just told Evan, hey man, this is the top 15.
People love the life hacks.
All right,
intro.
All right, the comments are already riling in. We got he's a lot more than that. He also does the Stairmaster, which is a legendary quote. People are very excited. But the first question I asked everybody, which I'm very excited for this question from you, not being the typical, tout like we all are. What is the worst fantasy take you've had in your career or life? Could be pre-Underdog, whatever. What's the worst fantasy take you've had?
I've had a lot. So, I know what most people would think my worst football take is about the Pat Mahomes. But I took Allen Robinson in the second round last year. I guess it's not that. I mean, it killed me in my home league, but it's not that egregious. I think other people thought he was good.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't know what my worst fantasy take is ever. It's my most controversial is that I don't like Pat Mahomes.
That's definitely your most controversial for sure. Are you? I joked about the Patriots thing, on the intro. Are you more pro Patriots? Are you one of those guys that want to, you have your home league or whatever, you want to have the guys you want to root for on your team? Are you more that way or the opposite? So I'm kind of the opposite, where it's I can get really negative about my teams and I almost don't want to draft them because I don't want to have the compounding effect of rooting for them for my fantasy league and for my fandom.
I've been anti-Patriots in fantasy my whole life. It's been such a hard team to play fantasy with. Even
True.
People say the running backs are challenging. The wide receivers are just as hard. The only person I ever wanted on the Patriots in fantasy was Gronk, who I always said when Gronk hits, which was, 3 or 4 years, he really, really hit. He was worth the 101, and it wasn't even that close. I'm not a Patriots fantasy guy. I don't like the double cheering. One of my least favorite things about fantasy sports in general, and going to whether it's conferences or live finals, and I ask people, hey, who's your team? And they're like, oh, I stopped cheering for my team 10 years ago. I only care about fantasy. And it stuck out to me. I think it was on your show with Chess Liam, our BBM2 champion. And he said he's worked hard to not lose his Bills fandom.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I think everybody should cling to what sort of got us here, or at least what I think got most people here, which is just loving football and loving your team and being a homer.
I love that take because, it's unique in the space. If you listen to a lot of, us people that our minds have been degraded from gambling for so long, it does happen. You do lose the fandom over, the cloth or whatever. But it's also become people wear that as a badge of honor, kind of, that I don't, that's stupid. Fandom is stupid. And I don't know, so I'm not a fan of an NFL team, but that is because I had and I had my team ripped away from me, by the league and by Stan Kroenke.
You were a Rams guy.
I was a St. Louis Rams fan, like absolute diehard, which shout out one of your colleagues, Josh Norris, came on here, and I actually didn't know that. Like in my peak fandom years, he was working for the Rams. So that's how I knew I should have known at the time. If I knew Josh, we were fucked. We were gonna lose the team because Josh was working for him. But so like I don't have that, but like actually, so like I'm literally wearing a St. Louis Billikens jersey, and like I have a blue, I have Blues and Cardinals and stuff. I think that's part of the fun of sports, like the fandom thing. Like, maybe you have a stupid fandom take or whatever. You're a little bit of a homer. Like, what's the point of all that? Like, are we really just gonna watch all of these sporting events for years just to grind out little like EV edges? Like I don't know. I like to I sweat St. Louis Billikens basketball games, and it's fun. And like it sucks at the end of the year when they don't make the tournament, but the whole process, like I don't want to live that life of just like, I'm gonna grind out these nickel edges for my entire life.
Yeah, I think like aggressive fanaticism that goes too far is basically a good thing. Like obviously some people are out of control and like impacts their families and stuff. But in terms of just me screaming at the television and letting it ruin my night or my week, I think that's good and healthy and what it's all about.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, you're going to get that effect. We were talking a little bit before we went live that I'm probably overexposed to the Celtics futures in these NBA playoffs, and I'm not a fucking Celtics fan. No offense. I don't really like Boston. I don't like any Boston sports. The Patriots ruined my early football fandom, dethroning the Rams, and I have no real reason to like the Patriots. Tom Brady was like a total, enemy of the state here in St. Louis, but like it ruins my night when the Celtics go lose to the freaking Heat when Jimmy Butler's hurt and Kyle Lowry has one leg. Like I'm financially invested, so I'm getting the same results from a bad outcome as a fan is, but I don't get like the positive fun parts of being the fan either, right? When you get the huge win or the Patriots Super Bowl or whatever.
Sort of random, and we were very young. How aware were you that the Patriots were very close to moving to St. Louis?
Not aware at all, really, when I was young. It's only been since I've gotten older that even was something that has crossed my mind.
I've tried to find their gear. They made like hats and t-shirts, and it says purple and yellow stallion. My dad told me when I was like 6 years old, hey, the Patriots might move to St. Louis. I was losing my mind at the time.
But and it worked out quite well that they stayed. What I will say, now that we're on the Patriots thing, one of, again, not as a fan, but getting a little bit of fandom joy out of it. Tom Brady's last game for the Patriots, the loss to the Titans in the playoffs. I was there. I went. I was lucky enough through work and through my former boss, Cal Spears, former CEO of Roto Grinders. He and DraftKings and stuff got us tickets to the DK box for that playoff game. It was one of because I don't like to. Well, I actually kind of like Tom Brady now, which makes me kind of sick to my stomach because he's pretty fucking awesome on social media. He's awesome, but I hated Tom Brady then. And like I wasn't really a Titans fan, but like it was like I felt like a Titans fan sitting in there amongst these thousands of Patriots fans. And then watching the end of Tom Brady was like, I don't know, I didn't have any financial, investment in it, but like even just that part of the fandom thing was like that was one of my favorite sports experiences of my entire life. And like it was brought on like not from a fandom perspective, but kind of from like, I created this fandom almost in that experience.
I have two things on that game. One, I think it's interesting that you call it the end of Tom Brady, and I don't really knock you for saying that despite him winning a Super Bowl later, because it just matters more in New England. It just matters more. It's always about us. I was saying this last night. We got the NBA Finals on, we got the NHL playoffs on, and it's 6:30 p.m. and Mina Kimes is talking about Mac Jones.
Yeah.
So it just matters more in New England for whatever reason. East Coast bias in the media, whatever. One of the most poetic things about that Titans game, and there was a lot of it, that I think went unnoticed. Logan Ryan had the last pick six, former Patriot, kind of interesting. But what truly killed me was there's certain teams, I care about the NFL draft probably more than the games. I love the team building. The offseason feels like Game of Thrones. And when I forget what year it was, but I was dying to draft Rashad Evans, the linebacker from Alabama.
Okay.
And there's certain teams in the draft because there's so many Belichick disciples out there that just routinely fuck us. And Vrabel is one of them. Now it's Caserio and the Titans. I knew they were taking John Mechie ahead of us. I was so mad because we just all have the same philosophies now, especially Caserio in Houston. So I'm dying for Rashad Evans. Vrabel trades one pick ahead of us, takes Rashad Evans. The other great draft defeat for me in the last couple of years was I'm pounding the table for Lamar Jackson at whatever it was, 22, where we took Sony Michel. And our quarterback's 40 fucking years old. Take Lamar Jackson. And we had a chance to tie or to go up in the game late in the game. And we give it to Sony Michel on the 1 yard line, and Rashad Evans fucking kills him. And I was like, this is it. This is all of my nightmares come to fruition in one play. And that's really when I knew it was all over.
That is so great. I love the draft thing because that's how I am too. So like, I don't know if you remember this. What was the NFL? There's a video game that was like NFL GM or NFL front office or NFL, whatever, the coach or something like
Madden
that.
Head coach or something.
Yeah, Madden. Yeah, right. Exactly. I always think about that when people bring that up because it was like I went and like bought that the first day it came out, and I mean the game was shit. It was absolute dog shit. You might as well just played Madden. But like that whole aspect of team building and just the process that goes into it, like the draft is so nuanced and intricate. I love all of that shit. It is so much fun. And that's also part of it's part of just being a football fan. I enjoy it, even not really having a true team that I root for. Although I've made it official. I'm adopting the Lions. I'm adopting the Lions.
They're
now.
a cool team. I like the Lions.
They're fun. And it's more fun to adopt like the team that's really shitty or has been really shitty, and then hopefully enjoy the ascent. They have my St. Louis guy, Jameson Williams. That's my dude.
I love Jameson Williams. He's like a favorite player in the draft.
Oh my God, he's so fun. He's so fun. He would have went way earlier if he didn't tear. And I mean, shit, he went 13th overall. But anyway, the team building thing. I also think that's part of like the fandom stuff. Is like I remember during those Rams days, like stressing over the 5th and 6th round picks. Like what? Oh, they didn't take the fucking 5th round linebacker that I wanted. And like at the end of the day, like, it doesn't really matter. But like that's part of the fun. That's part of the off season, like getting the guys you want or didn't want or whatever in like every pick of the draft and analyzing all of that. Like I don't know. I can't imagine not having some of that in my
I have a
life.
Great video of me standing in front of the TV in my underwear in the 6th round, begging for us to draft Braxton Berrios, who was my classmate at Miami.
Oh, nice.
I was just dying for him. I knew he was going to be fucking awesome. And we drafted him, and I go absolutely ballistic. And we chose Gunnar Olszewski over him. Mm-hmm. And I tried to make peace with this, and I rationalized it for a long time. And Gunnar Olszewski was first-team All-Pro punt returner. And I was like, who's never been first-team All-Pro is Braxton Berrios. Good choice, Belichick. He really never screws those personnel decisions up. For whatever flaws he does have, he really doesn't screw those up. And then this year, Braxton Berrios is first team All-Pro punt returner, and I've got no legs to stand on.
So perfect segue. You said you were roommates with Braxton Berrios?
No, just my classmate.
Just classmates.
Yeah.
Okay. So I kind of ask everybody this too. How the fuck did we get here? How is Nick Rudman, running the fantasy? Where, like I've kind of known some of the other people that I've had on, whether it was like mostly Pete or something like that. But like, I first got introduced to you, and probably a lot of people first got introduced to you that are watching this from obviously your role with Underdog. But how did we get here? Where did you come from before? Were you big in fantasy, poker, gambling? Yep. What's the story?
So short answer is no. I have some experience before Underdog at draft, but it really started. I met one of our co-founder and chairman, Jeremy Levine, at a live snake draft when I was like 14 years old, growing up in Boston. So, I first met Jeremy literally doing a live snake draft. We were friends since then. My older brother was friends with Jeremy, and I got invited into their league, which I won a number of times. We're still in this league. It's almost like 20 years now. Whatever, until late in high school, I interned for Jeremy's first company called Star Street Sports. Didn't think much of it. I was always completely addicted to fantasy, addicted to the draft. really like snake drafts. Like it's really the NFL draft that like made me love fantasy, because just the team building and the picking players and researching and having opinions. I like this wide receiver more than that wide receiver. This guy's cooler than that guy. I was just always in the drafting space, whether it was loving snake drafts or loving the NFL draft. Didn't think much of it. Never thought I'd worked in fantasy or gambling in college. I went to UMiami as a political science major. I went to LA. I did a bunch of nothing. I did some cool stuff. Like I worked at Jay Glazer's gym. I trained Sylvester Stallone. I trained the Chainsmokers, who are now our investors, which is pretty funny.
You can't say like, oh, I went to LA and I did nothing, and then say, oh yeah, I trained Sylvester Stallone. It
was cool. It was a cool experience, but it wasn't a real career. I just showed up at Jay Glazer's gym, and I said, I'll do whatever you want. Just like let me work here. And he was the man. Me and Jay hit it off, and he was like, okay, you can work here. I'll pay you basically fucking nothing, but you can work here, and I have cool clients.
Right.
And yeah, I got to train Sylvester Stallone for a while. He was the man, coolest guy ever. He probably doesn't remember me. He's pretty old. But he was cool. He was jacked.
He's been through some shit too. So
he has some insane stories. I got to work with the Chainsmokers, which was pretty interesting. It's actually funny. The way that they invested in Underdog was I was running the Underdog Twitter account, and we get a DM from the Chainsmokers, and it's like, hey, can we like get in touch to like talk to you guys about your business? And I wrote them back from the make. I'm like, I actually know you guys. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I was like, Drew, like I used to train you at Unbreakable Gym, yada, yada. So it was very funny. Realized that lifting weights was not really a career, or at least not what I wanted to do. And Jeremy was on the brink of selling Draft. This was early 2017. Okay. And I said, I'll do whatever you want. Just let me work in fantasy. I love fantasy. I'd never even thought about working in it really. And I went to Draft, and I was a customer support team of one. I took over for Underdog's graphic designer, David Gamboa, Gamby, our creative director, Gamby, and co-founder. He was doing support. He handed it over to me so we could do more creative stuff. And then I started doing our social media at Draft, ended up being director of customer support, built a team there, did a lot of stuff for Draft. Really almost a similar job what I do now, but less with the product. And then we sold Draft, got absorbed by FanDuel after Paddy Power bought us. I was at FanDuel for a couple of weeks, really mailed it in. I didn't do shit. It was not a work from home job, but I just made it a work from home job. I just never went in. And then futzed around for about a year. And then we started Underdog March 2020, right when COVID was kicking off. And I've been doing basically what I've been doing for Underdog the whole time. My title has changed, but it's really just sort of make it fun and cool and understand what the people want, size the contests, make our support good, do some stuff with marketing, really touch it all a little bit besides engineering.
So let's run down this list real quick. Went to the University of Miami. Where are you from?
From Boston.
So you
from Boston. I always wanted to go to. I wanted to go to Miami ever since they used to kill BC in football when I was a kid. I was like, all right, I'm going there. They're cooler.
The Miami, I assume we're at least like close to similar ages. The Miami college football run is stuff of legends. If you go back and look at some of those teams, like the Ed Reed is like my guy, probably my favorite football player ever. That era, Willis McGahee, Ed Reed, that
19
whole group.
First rounders on that team.
Yes. I mean, unbelievable. You go look, and there's like fourth stringers that are like borderline Hall of Famers in the NFL on that stretch of 4 to 5 years or whatever that they had. So they're part of probably what changed football for me. There's like a few landmarks that were like that. Reggie Bush in college was like that for me. That Miami run was definitely like that for me. And then like Rams and Patriots, sadly, was like my era. So it's funny that you bring up Miami because it's kind of all intertwined into this like football era of like truly legendary, life-changing football teams.
Totally. And it was the gear too. Like even like when I say like I love the team building, it's like, and Josh talks about this. It's so funny. We have this exactly so much in common. Picking the face mask on your guy in Madden, and like I want the same visor as Sean Taylor, and like all that stuff. I still will create a player in Madden and spend hours on his wristbands.
Yeah, yes. Yes, 100%. You got to get the exact perfect elbow, and they have different kinds of the wristbands, and it's like, no. Some of
I need
those are
the
stupid.
thin ones. Yeah.
Yes, it gets too thick, and you look like an idiot. This is not 1991. We don't wear those thick wristbands
Yeah.
anymore. It's the tiny elbow bands. I wore multiple in college when I played, but we wore them. We didn't really wear them around our elbows that much because we wore sleeves.
Right.
It was actually like that era of football player made sleeves cool. Like loose sleeves. You look like an idiot now. I really don't know why we did that, but you wear them all around your legs, and like you probably look like, I look back and like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? But the same thing. It was my own chance to customize my Madden character with my wrist, but the wristbands and leg bands and everything.
Yeah, I put a football visor in my lacrosse helmet.
Yeah. That is awesome. So you played lacrosse at Miami?
No, I played lacrosse in high school. I'm nothing of an athlete. I have never been good at sports in my life. I'm still bad at them. I'm really a terrible athlete.
So you would be a cowboy collar guy.
I put a cowboy collar in my lacrosse pads and made me take it off.
You would put a cowboy collar in your lacrosse pads. That was the dude that wanted to act like a hard ass back in the day, back when we were younger. You wore the cowboy collar. So we go from Miami to trying to figure it out. I think we've probably all been through that stage. But what was it specifically about like the weightlifting and fitness industry that like didn't make you want to do that? You're still into it and stuff, right? But you didn't want to make it a career. What kind of happened there that changed your mind?
It's just more of a hobby. Like, I just love it. I didn't want it to be work. It was actually interfering with my personal fitness, having to train other people. And I so do my fitness my own way that it really doesn't make, like, the chain smokers, I don't think liked my brand of fitness. Stallone did. And that's why it sort of worked with him, because it's very unscientific. I don't count any calories. Like, I have no program. It's like it's very bro-y, and like sort of caveman. And also you don't make any money. So unless you're like top of the top. But it's just hard. Like, being really subservient to people in that fashion is a tough thing to do for a long time, especially working with famous people. You get treated like shit. But it was cool. It was definitely an experience. But no, fitness professional is tough. And you got to build a brand. Like, I don't have Instagram. I don't want Instagram. Like, I like talking shit on Twitter, and that's the only social media I have.
Yeah.
So yeah, fitness as a career just wasn't hitting for me. But I was in Venice Beach, like that's where I live. So like, I lived next door to Gold's Gym. I was seeing Arnold Schwarzenegger every day, like all my bodybuilding heroes I was seeing. So it was definitely cool, and I thought, oh, maybe I want to do this for a living, but I don't.
Yeah. So then we get to through draft into Underdog, but you talked a little bit about like that transitional process from someone who has been in the industry now for a little while. I'm not sure if everybody listening quite understands, even like necessarily what draft was. Draft, honestly, is really what kind of ignited the whole space. Obviously, Underdog has taken it to not catastrophic, stratospheric level in the last couple of years. But draft was really like, we had like the MFL 10s, and like best ball's been a thing for a while.
Got to shout out best MFL 10s as really early days.
Yes, that's really what started it, I think. And then draft took it and made it into like a much more fun, bigger, obviously tournament atmosphere and all that. That's what got me. I will never forget the final day of whatever the contest, the biggest tournament that was on draft. We're living at our old house, and we had a really small little back deck, and it's not full. And I'm trying to get as many. I wasn't like to the max or whatever. I'm trying to get as many entries in. I think I was doing like 10 drafts I just kept entering. There's like 5 minutes left, and I'm just like enter. I think I was standing there doing 10 drafts, like with like a beer or a drink or whatever on my back deck. And like the wife would come out and be like, ask me like, oh, what do you want to do for dinner? I'm like, not now. Like I'm literally, I'm 10 tabling best ball draft. She's like, what the fuck is a best ball draft? I'm like, go to draft.com. She's like, that doesn't make any sense to her. But it got me hooked in like that whole experience. And I think it's been the biggest thing about the getting to Underdog, draft kind of had to happen first. But like the experience of FanDuel kind of like mothballing it, I don't, there's probably things you can't share, whatever. But is there anything you can like talk about during that little like 1 year period or whatever it was?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have anything super negative to say. Like, it's just draft was pretty small, and I think we were 40-ish people by the time it sort of ended. And we moved pretty darn fast, and it was like a very startup-y atmosphere. And it's, FanDuel didn't buy us, so like they had no plans for us. We were forced onto them, and they were just like had to figure it out, which like isn't really fair to them. And I guess I would say maybe they didn't do a great job of figuring it out, but like they've never, or at least as far as I know, never integrated like another fantasy platform into theirs. Like it was very messy. It was the company that bought us, Paddy Power, was basically just punting on us. Because like the reason this all happened was we get bought by Paddy Power with the idea that gambling might be legal in America down the line, and we would acquire all these gamblers. Well, gambling became legal much sooner than I think anybody really expected. And Paddy Power, I hope I have this all right. Paddy Power basically had a choice. They could give us a $100 million marketing budget and say, go acquire all the users that FanDuel already has, or they could pay $450 million for FanDuel, which, man, what a bargain. Can you imagine buying FanDuel for $450 million?
Seriously.
What
was I doing? Why didn't I figure that one out?
So they were like, screw it. Like, why? We're not going to spend all this time trying to acquire users. We'll just buy FanDuel. And for them, what they paid for draft, is a drop in the bucket. So they don't care. So yeah, you get to FanDuel. Integration is really weird. I basically moved down the ladder of basically like sort of how much power I had. I'm doing social media stuff for FanDuel. It's like a big team. They tried to help me, like making promises about like stuff I could do in the future, yada, yada, yada. And I had a pretty bad attitude about it. But I guess I don't know why they closed it. Like, I think they wanted to have a single wallet. They want to put the drafts on the FanDuel app as opposed to have two apps. I think in retrospect, probably everybody agrees they should have just kept the lights up, just let draft keep doing their thing, and you can collect the check for it. But I'm glad they didn't, because Underdog would not be Underdog had it not played out the way it did.
It is crazy. We'll hit some of these questions now. First, we got to hit Terrence's. I told 100%. The thicker, the more the wristband, the worse the player. That is a known ratio. That is science. I agree. Yeah. Thin sweatbands all the way. UD crushes it. Yeah, UD crushes it. The support. So shout out to Nick and team. Obviously, the support is great. One good question from Dan Jones. Any I don't know if danger is the right, but is Underdog in the UK on the time horizon?
It's not.
What's the the international is not my area. I know a little bit about in the US, but I don't know enough about international legalities.
I know it's legal, but like we could operate there, I'm sure, but to jump through a million hoops, it's probably really expensive. It's not just a matter of time and money, though. I think sort of like the analysis is that it's not a good business decision for a number of reasons. I don't know the exact details. DraftKings or FanDuel like did this, and they had like FanDuel UK, or they're still available over there, and I think it hasn't been good for them. I'm speaking from a place of mild ignorance, but I think it just hasn't gone well. And it's something that, we've talked about, it, especially because of Tom, UK best ball Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Who's just
Tom's
the best.
Great.
The best.
He is
we
awesome.
love it. If you knew how much we talked about him in the office and just the fact that he loves us so much, despite having never played.
I know.
But
shout out Tom. Seriously,
shout out Tom. Yeah.
He's a great part of this whole community.
More senior business people, both at Underdog and just in the industry, have just said like, yeah, don't do that.
Yeah. Again, I'm ignorant to exactly the legalities and tax ramifications and all that kind of stuff, but I would imagine that even whatever I would project in terms of cost, like you said, from my area of ignorance, it's probably like double, triple, quadruple what I would even expect. I can't imagine. But piggybacking on this, Bullock asked about what about like new states? I know you guys have had kind of some both ups and downs over the course of the last 3 to 6 months, even with the states. How is all that going for you guys?
It's good. So now, especially trying to do sportsbook, we get even more into regulation, and we just hired like maybe she's not well known because it's sort of niche, but like the rock star of fantasy and gambling regulation, Stacey Stern. So she was a huge get for us. We're very excited and lucky to have her. How does it go getting into states? It's really just crazy amounts of paperwork and money. I guess, I don't think I've actually ever said this publicly because it doesn't sound so great. The only states we're not in that we could be, that we just don't for basically financial reasons, is Delaware and Iowa. It's too expensive in Delaware and Iowa for us to justify paying what it costs versus how many users we would have there. I know people don't want to hear that, but those are the only two states that we could be in that we are not. Everything else we're not in is either because we're in some long legal process that I imagine will end well, or because they don't allow it. But it's crazy. Being part of the co-founding team when we're trying to join somewhere like Pennsylvania, and I love the Pennsylvania Gaming Commission. They're all wonderful people. They're really nice. This paperwork took me weeks. It's some of the most intense shit I've ever done in my life. I have to list every tattoo I've ever had. I have to get fingerprints done. It's wild stuff. But yeah, we're everywhere we can be reasonably.
People don't really realize how insane. I guess maybe some people do realize, or they're just aware of how absurd the government and a lot of the governmental processes are. But so I went down. Somebody mentioned this on Twitter. I think John Warner, I believe is his name. I think he actually even tagged you guys because he's a smart guy and had an idea about peer-to-peer type stuff. And I was like, well, I don't mean to cut off your idea here, but once you realize everything it takes from a state to state perspective on these kinds of things, you'll realize why it doesn't exist. And I actually went down not that many years ago, I'm kind of a startup brained idea type of person, whatever. And I went down them. I'm like, why the fuck is there not some kind of peer-to-peer betting thing or whatever? And I went down the whole rabbit hole, right? And you eventually come to find out all of these things and learn kind of the stuff that you're talking about. And Pennsylvania specifically with sportsbook licensing is hilarious. And you go look state by state, right? And it's just hilarious, the differences. Go to Colorado and you and I could go start a sportsbook today, with the money that we have, and we could get it approved really easily and be up and running, very quickly. He said you go to Pennsylvania and it's well, you're going to have to go get some rich ass investors just to be able to afford the license. And it's going to take you a year to get all the paperwork done. That's the difference. It's so crazy. And so I can't even imagine trying to, as you guys are growing and trying to scale with the state by state stuff.
Yeah. It definitely is a challenge. Other people besides me spend a lot of time on it, but I'm grateful that we're in 41 states. It's pretty good. It's definitely a big advantage for us when marketing partners, and we're more available than gambling is, and et cetera, et cetera.
So what about Sportsbook? We can talk about it now, I guess. There's an article out on it on one of our actual US bets. Is one of our properties. You were even interviewed for this article, and you guys touched a little bit on the Sportsbook space. You don't have to share anything you don't want to share or can't share, but how is that? You're obviously in the beginning stages, and maybe that has come to, I think Jeremy even said, this is all coming to kind of fruition maybe quicker than we expected. I think most people expected that the sportsbook space was something you're going to get interested or start moving into, but I know you guys are very innovative. What's kind of the initial steps of all that going to look like?
I am pretty laser focused on fantasy. At this stage, the sportsbook, it's a lot of engineering and it's a lot of paperwork. So I say I get to do a lot of the fun creative stuff. We're just not really there yet. So I haven't done so much with it. But I would say that, similar to what is in that article, that sort of the whole ethos of the company is just do things differently. We're just not going to FanDuel and DraftKings have so much money and so many people that if we try to just go head to head in the same games, we don't offer salary cap for a reason. And it's not going to work. They're just going to beat us. So we have to get a little innovative. We have to get a little fun. We got to think outside the box. I would say that we acquired a company I don't know, a year ago at this point, which was the start of us doing sportsbook, called Goat Gaming, a European company. We've integrated them into Underdog much better maybe than other integrations have gone. They're great people. They join the team seamlessly. I'm sure it's a lot of work for other people, but they've joined great. It's been wonderful to have them. Though a lot of our developers are in the Ukraine, so it's been a wild time. I
can attest to that. My definitely biggest designer, like front end web designer that I work with for everything that we're doing was in Russia actually, and
Wow.
had to like flee the country during all of this. And it was like, and I actually did not know exactly where he was located and stuff. And we're like all just having communications. And obviously there's a big time difference and all that. So things are slow. And one day I would just be like, hey, here, you know how it goes. You're just talking status, whatever, sending requirements or whatever. And he would be like, yeah, we're a little tired. We just traveled, for 2 straight days fleeing Russia,
Yeah.
and I'm like, yeah, dude, like, I promise you this best ball design that I want from you, not quite as important as what you got going on.
Yeah, but all our developers are safe. They've certainly gone through fucking crazy shit. But yeah, they're all safe. I'm sure it's been a crazy challenge for everybody trying to build a sports book in the middle of a war.
Yeah.
But yeah, things with sportsbook. I hope it's different. I think like way down the line is one day I hope that you can't even really tell if what you're playing is a fantasy game or a gambling game. And I hope it all feels a little bit like a video game. Like sometimes I think our stuff looks like Game Boy, like just simple, cool pictures, colors, a little bit of a different thing than you're used to. It's not. I'm just speaking for the developers now. I don't think it's that hard to offer over-unders and game totals. I think the things that we'll want to offer are cooler than that and more creative. Live betting stuff, pool games, a March Madness bracket that's a lot better than some huge company's website that is sort of dingy. But yeah,
and
should be fun,
harder to innovate, right? It's harder for FanDuel and DraftKings to innovate. It's a big ship, right? You can't turn a big ship very quickly. And sometimes you may even want to innovate, but it doesn't make sense, when you're as big as a DraftKings is. For you guys, obviously you're a lot more nimble, but also you can expand. I mean, just look at the best ball contest that you're offering, pre-NFL draft. You're like, if backyard best ball didn't work or didn't fill, like, it didn't matter because you were like, This is our small little experiment. It was fun. It was a good thing for the off season. Let's try it. If we never want to do it again, we never have to do it again. But like, it's a very different thing for the DraftKings and FanDuels of the world. So there's a couple of questions. This is definitely true. The interface is honestly maybe what took the whole space by storm. Right? There wasn't a good, even like go to FFPC, that's a painful experience. DraftKings is miserably painful. Drafters has gotten better, but is not still to the level of Underdog. And I think you hit on my favorite thing. And it was, well, I mean, you mentioned like the Game Boy. Look at the backdrop of this whole show. That's clearly based off of the exact kind of same concept. But that thing, like being like attacking things from a different angle, being willing to innovate, that's what draws me into it. And that's also why I'm super bullish long term, is that like you that's just like a core company like competency. That's like you come into everything, and that's something that's ingrained in the process, is how can we do this differently, think about things differently, because that's what it seems like from the outside. But how is it from being on the inside?
So our UI is the first thing everybody says. 100% of the time, it's always like, wow, it just looks so good. It's so easy to use. And there are few things in the company that are sort of one person's doing. Our UI is because of Gandy, David Gamboa. Even cool. Version 1 of the app, I think, was pretty darn beautiful and easy to use. It looks better now, and it'll look even better in the future. But yeah, it's really Gandy. He's a total wizard. He's just a total rock star. And he goes in the lab, and I don't hear from him for however long. And he comes back out and has something amazing. And, we have other product designers too now that have picked stuff up and are going to have amazing stuff that I think the users really enjoy, whether it's like an expanded exposure page, so maybe a little further off than might expect. But yeah, we just have gotten very lucky with product designers. And now we've been so spoiled with Gamby. And this is a testament to all the other product designers we've hired since then, that we're so darn picky with like, well, this person isn't Gamby, so like, it's just not quite as good. But the people we have hired since hiring Gamby have been great, and they filled right in and keep the app looking very nice. But yeah, being different, I value being different just for the sake of being different. Like even our push notifications sometimes are like kind of silly or stupid, And I'm like, I don't care. Just make it different than Yahoo or DraftKings or FanDuel. It'll stick out. My favorite thing is when people tweet our push notifications. Yeah, definitely different for the sake of being different matters to me. I think it gets people's attention. Like I like in ads or sometimes politicians when they swear. It's kind of cheesy, but like it works. It gets my attention. Like Beto used to say "fuck" sometimes. I was like, damn, that really works. I'm really listening to him now.
Yeah, I do. It's the swearing thing is funny. It's probably just because I have a swearing problem, but also, I mean, I'm like, if you're gonna hang out, right? If I'm expecting people to come hang out and listen to you and I, a person who is building a fantasy sports product and a person who's talking about fantasy sports for a living, and come spend an hour with us, like, and I'm not gonna be real. And I'm not going to be human. Like I'm going to be this robot that's like, oh yeah, use this promo code and like and subscribe to this video. It's like, no, like we're all just hanging out, whatever. So I'm going to say fuck sometimes, like probably too much, but I think that's all part of it. And again, that's why I really appreciate Underdog, trying to make sure I don't miss any of these questions. We don't have to like sit here and talk about all of the Underdog products, but Chris G, shout out Chris G, one of the big grinders out there, is asking about Superflex. How did that go? You launched a big Superflex contest before the NFL draft. Now I think people are itching for like a regular season Superflex, in the regular heart of draft. Is that something you guys are looking at? Was that an experiment, etc.?
I don't know if I'd call it an experiment. I think the biggest wins we can get are how can we make things feel new and fresh with the least amount of work, and create. And people, users have pretty bad judgment of what's a lot of work and what's not. Creating Superflex is not a lot of work. It's really just changing some positional stuff, which was pretty easy for the developers. And I'm glad people liked it. I've never been a Superflex person in my personal life. I like one quarterback, but will there be a Superflex puppy? I'm not going to answer. I just want to keep everybody on their toes. And when we release new things, I want it to feel a bit like a surprise. I'm anal about surprises. Like we put the puppy rules up today early. And like, that's a new thing for me, being comfortable putting it up early and not like the moment we launch, but timing those things has just become too hard. So Superflex wasn't that hard. And we will continue to try to keep things fresh. I care, as I'm sure everyone watching this probably knows, I care so much about our Twitter community. And I care so much about mean tweets. I see mean tweets at the other operators all the time, and they're not replying. And I'm like, how are you just letting this person be pissed about this thing that you could probably just tell them the truth and like they'd move on? Right. So that's why I'm like terminally online and try to respond to really anybody that ever has a question about Underdog. There's no reason you should ever tweet at us and not get a response unless you're being a complete asshole or the question is just out of control. So we'll try to keep mixing it up. I know the people on Twitter are drafting all summer, and when they go in that room for the 500th time, I hope it doesn't feel like the 500th time because we keep offering them new stuff.
Love that take. I think that's the big thing also in that article, which I shared in the chat. If you're in the chat, I shared the US Bets article where they talked with Jeremy and Rudman both about just kind of some of the future of Underdog. And Jeremy mentioned in there, I was having a conversation with a colleague today that like, this Best Ball Mania might be the biggest tournament we ever get to. And I think some people might have said like, oh no, it's not going to get any bigger. But I was like, I think that's a good thing. Yeah. I don't want it to be all in this one tournament. And like, because that then makes all the focus for you guys on that one tournament, right? We need to fill and we need to promote and we need to do everything around that one tournament. I want you guys approach. There's going to be more demand. We know there's going to be more demand. Let's fix Superflex and all the innovations and all these different things, like you said, so that I don't want, honestly, I have this fear as it is. I'm going to get to September and I'm going to be like, God damn it. I'm going to do this is my 150th, whatever, doing the same shit, right? Drafting Trey Lance, drafting a backup quarterback in the 9th round again for, the millionth time. I don't want to get to that point where I'm exhausted. And I think we have you guys having that mindset is great for the industry, as opposed to some people might say, well, next year they're going to launch a $20 million contest and 25 and whatever, as opposed to like figuring out what's best for the community.
Yeah. It was actually me that said, maybe this is the biggest. And when I read it back, I didn't like the way it sounded. I thought I was sort of negging best ball a little bit. But what I mean by that is just, and I went on to say this a little bit, is just that bigger isn't better. It's really not, like, unless that many people. And again, I really care about the Twitter community. Obviously, marketing matters too. But I don't think everybody in the Twitter community thinks they're going to come in first place. It's not like everybody thinks they're going to make millions of dollars. And I think $10 million is about as big as it gets without having to really change the game for it still being a fun and winnable contest. And the marketing boost that you get from $15 million versus $10 million, I think is nothing. I don't really think there's any difference. I think you have to go to probably $20 or $25 million to get a different kind of messaging or marketing boost. I don't think that would be a nice size tournament. I think you have to raise the entry fee or make the rounds huge. I just think that there's better ways to innovate in ways that are better for the user and more fun than just a bigger prize pool. Now, maybe we'll get some marketing directive next year. Like, listen, we have to do a $50 million tournament, and that'd be cool. And I'd be happy to do it. But I will continue to nerd out on sort of a bit smaller contests and trying to keep it different. Like even with the puppy, the rules are out now. It's not that big. Right. And a lot of that is that we want puppies in particular, especially this time of year, to fill at a time where it's sort of a window of information, where you can look back and you're like, okay, this was how we were all feeling in May. And I know slow drafts do water that down a little bit, but not that much. So I think things filling nicely or relatively quickly has a sense of urgency. It's a nice time capsule of the information at the time. So yeah, I just don't think bigger is better. I'm glad DraftKings did what they did. It's really interesting and it's good learnings for us. And I'm excited to see how it shakes out. And they have a lot of cool offerings. And 800,000 entrant tournament is crazy, but I'm excited to see how it goes.
Yeah, I'm also excited. Like you said, it's good for the industry. They tried something different too, and maybe it fails miserably, maybe it's a success. But without everybody kind of trying these different things out, we'll never learn without that. This is a good question from Tony, kind of piggybacking on some of your, like, is there any thought to? I don't know that it can be from within, right? When there's 500 people in the final week of Best Ball Mania, but maybe another contest, maybe it's higher stakes or whatever, something where 50 or 100 people or something like that end up at a live final.
It's hard. Like, especially I think the final is like the week before Christmas or something. The timing is bad. The amount of people is bad. It's tough. We've talked about, like, what's an alternative to a live final? Could be like a live end of the regular season. Can we do something where, like, you get invited and we hook you up when you get there, but we're not flying 1,000 people somewhere? So it's a challenge. Definitely want to do some live events, and I'm sure we'll do more live events as we go on. But yeah, a live final is pretty complicated. The timing doesn't work out. The expenses are not great. But yeah, mostly timing. I think it was the week before Christmas or something, which made it so tough.
Also love, you said this in Chaos Stuff. He says, like, the window of information comment is so true. And I don't want to gloss over that because I couldn't agree more. I think it's part of what makes the whole summer fun. To me, why last summer was like one of the most insanely fun summers we ever had is you have Best Ball Mania, right? That inherently is going to be. So there's a strategy to a contest that opens at the beginning of May and closes at week 1, right? However, we all have different opinions on that. We don't need to dive into the bullshit of when to draft and all of that. But, like, there is inherently more strategy around that because, like you said, the window of information is massive. We have zero information to maximum information and figuring out how to, but you also can't just draft the 150 teams on the last day of the contest. It's not humanly possible. So that's fun. But then you have, right, Puppy 1 that filled in 8 days or whatever it was. Like, we all are working off the exact same thing. There's not even time for ADP to shift. Even if we got new information, there's not even that much ADP shifting because it closes so fast. That's one of my favorite elements of it. And I know you guys are obviously, based off your comments, clearly focused on that. So I think that's actually a huge, really underrated part of the whole draft summer.
Yeah, Treylon Burks had an ADP of like 65 in February.
Yeah.
And now he
Great.
can't catch his breath at practice.
Yeah. Right. And
Be
that's
bad.
the first.
Sorry for the Titans fans.
That's shout out to the Titans fans. You got a little bit of hope at the beginning of this when I was talking about how you knocked Tom Brady out of his Patriots run, and now you just traded AJ Brown and drafted a dude who can't get through a practice without almost dying. So shout out to them. So we talked a ton about all this underdog stuff, and we appreciate you like informing us on all of that. We're gonna pivot because we got to hear a little bit more of the Rudman takes. Here's a question that I like to ask. It's called start, bench, cut. Okay, you have to start one of these guys. You got to bench one of them, and you got to cut one of them. And we're using former Patriots. Okay, but maybe not the Patriots that you think. Former Patriot wide receivers. You got to start one, bench one, cut one. Wes Welker, Julian Edelman.
I'm cutting Wes Welker.
Oh, okay. Wes Welker, Julian Edelman, and Deion Branch.
I'm starting Edelman.
Okay.
I think that the concussion play in the Seattle Super Bowl on 3rd and 15 was one of the best plays in Patriot history. It's about 1,000 times better than his catch versus Atlanta, which really wasn't that amazing. The ball hung in the air forever. Like,
yeah,
whatever. I also we were going to score on that drive no matter what happened on that play. Deion Branch is a great Patriot. Love Deion Branch. Belichick's the only GM to ever draft 2 wide receivers to win Super Bowl MVP. And I hate Wes. Feel bad for Wes Welker. I do not.
That's so interesting.
I don't. He lost us a Super Bowl.
Yeah, true. So is that what it is? Is that what it is? I mean, he caught like
yes.
a million balls for the Patriots and was on the best one of the best offenses of all time.
I will defend him as a football player in that he has better stats than like Calvin Johnson over a 5-year period. He had like the best 5-year run ever, like 120 catches and 1,500 yards. He was amazing, and he had a great and sort of tragic career. The injuries and the concussions are terrible. It seems to have not been good for him. He was a cool guy, like the party, like him doing Molly at the Kentucky Derby is cool. And like Brady loves him, and like that means something to me that Brady still loves him. But you got to catch that fucking ball. Like it's just versus Baltimore. Cut Wes Welker.
That's funny. I don't know what I thought the answer was going to be, but the instant fuck Wes Welker.
He never won Super Bowl.
Whoa, yeah. It's true. And it is so funny because I was actually looking, I was figuring out who I was going to put in that question earlier. And I was going through the Wes Welker career yearly logs.
Stats are insane.
I was like, good Lord. Yeah. Like I knew that they were good, but they are absolutely insane. So like I said, for you to be like, nope, that's the guy I'm instantly.
It didn't matter. None of that mattered.
Yep.
It was all for naught. Edelman was amazing. And I probably like Edelman maybe as a person the least out of those guys. Like I don't think if he's like such a big celebrity. He's not my favorite celebrity. But man, was he an amazing player and like genuinely unguardable at times. And yes, a Hall of Famer.
Oh, there we go. I like that. I'm also partial to the small school converted quarterback.
Totally. Number
one
I quarterback at Kent State.
Those stories are awesome. I also was robbed of it because my St. Louis Rams drafted Eric Crouch. If you remember Eric Crouch, who won the Heisman, running a triple option quarterback at Nebraska and was going to play wide receiver. And so that's that. I don't know. That story is so fun to me. And so to see it play out that's basically what Edelman was, obviously in a smaller school.
Yeah.
Not quite.
Patriots had Malcolm Perry, the wide receiver from Navy, taking quarterback snaps for us yesterday.
Oh, he's taking quarterback snaps yesterday. Yeah, because he played triple option quarterback as well. Yeah. He's one of the best ever at Navy, and I'm also partial to Navy. A kid from a local kid was one of the leading rushers in Navy. Brian Hampton was his name. Went to Navy and was he went to my high school and played quarterback at Navy. So I love the triple option stuff. So awesome. Cool. I love it. So what about
Joe Cardona went to Navy as well?
I think I knew that. I think I knew that too. So then who is when you think my favorite athletes ever or whatever, obviously doesn't have to be Patriots and Celtics and stuff. Who's the guys? I have, I told my story about Darius Miles. I'm obviously a St. Louis fan. So you get the Ozzie Smiths and Brett Holes and stuff like that of the world. Penny Hardaway and Ken Griffey Jr. would be my guys, not on the teams that I played. Who is that for you?
So I've got a couple different answers. I would say there's two different lists. There's my personal favorite athletes, and there's the greatest Boston athletes of all time. The greatest Boston athlete of all time is David Ortiz, and I'm not sure it's that close. I'm not even really a Red Sox fan, but like his personal performances in winning championships, combined with sort of his persona, and then this is our fucking city after the marathon. He's just the greatest Boston athlete who's ever lived. And people think like, oh, why isn't it Tom Brady? And Tom Brady's not my favorite Patriot of all time. Vince Wilfork is my favorite Patriot of all time.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Tom Brady loves winning. He loves Robert Kraft. I think he loves the organization, but he's like a demigod where like if he walks down the street, I can't even get within 15 yards of him. David Ortiz walks down the street. I think he'd give me a hug. And my favorite athlete ever is Paul Pierce. I grew up right next to the Celtics Stadium. I went to 1 million games a year. He was there for so long. We won a championship. We went through so much together, getting stabbed. I love Paul Pierce. But if Marcus Smart wins a title in Boston and is on the Celtics for 10 years, he'll be my favorite athlete of all time.
I love it. Marcus Smart is one of the best answers for like when you're a fan of that team, that's your fucking guy. Like you will ride or die with that dude. And everyone else that's a fan of every other team is like, fuck Marcus Smart.
I think he earned a lot of people's respect this year.
I think so too.
Actually real. I know people shit on him for getting depoy, which is wrong. But like he's good at shooting threes now. Like I know people still, he can't shoot. He can shoot, and he's a point guard, and he can defend Giannis. So man, I love Marcus Smart. Yeah, if he gets a ring and is here for a few more years, that's my favorite athlete ever.
Also love Marcus Smart. His college coach Travis Ford is now the St. Louis Bill. He's actually in the midst of Travis Ford was an insane recruiter at Oklahoma. I still don't think he can coach very well, but like he recruited dudes at Oklahoma State, and Marcus Smart was his prized, recruit that got Oklahoma State that made his career basically. And I love those guys. I love the guys that everybody hates because like he flops.
I still like and respect Kyle Lowry. I think he's sort of like the Marcus Smart before Marcus Smart. Yep. Pat Beverly isn't quite good enough for me to say that I like
correct.
Him. But yeah, Lowry, I have all the respect in the world. His flopping, his defense is fire. I love it.
This is funny. I
am going to the game. Yes, I moved to Miami I went to college here, as we said, and I moved back here about 2 years ago. I live walking distance from the stadium, so I'll be there in a couple hours.
How is that? So as a casual viewer, Miami has the most boring atmosphere for basketball games, even like must-win playoff games. It looks boring as shit. I think you even tweeted it that like I'll be the only person back for the start of the second half in my seat. Is that how it really is? Like, is my perspective real?
It's really bad. I've lived in all kinds of sort of bad sports towns. Obviously, Boston being maybe the best in the country, but I lived in LA. It's a complete joke. No one gives a shit. I live in Miami. No one cares about. It's just very hard to compete with sort of all the other activities and the weather. But yeah, no one gives a shit. I guess what I would say is that what's worse than the heat is Barclays. Barclays, I was there for Celtics Nets, was pathetic. Like there's still people cheering for the Heat. Like they're late to they're late to starts. They're late to the second half. They don't know exactly when to cheer. But like if someone dunks the ball, they get really loud. Me and my high school friends were at Celtics Nets talking so much shit, and no one cared. They're like, "Oh yeah, man, good game." And there was Celtics chants there. Barclays was pathetic. People full on didn't cheer. Guy next to me fell asleep. But yeah, it's bad. It's uneducated fans. It's people on dates. So it's like they just have no idea when to cheer. Like they're not even booing us when we're shooting free throws until like just before he releases the ball.
That is just wild. That is just wild to me. It is so foreign. Maybe it's like you grew up in a sports city, and I'm from the Midwest, and so we don't have the weather and the beaches and all of that stuff. So like if you go to a sporting event, like it's like there's only one way to act and like be at a sporting event.
Yeah, psychopath.
Yeah, you're like, that's what the fuck are you going to the game for if it's not to like cheer and yell? And you get 3 hours that week or whatever to act like a moron. You can't do that in your actual real personal life. Scream at other, like, because of the cloth this dude is wearing, I get to call him a fucking idiot and a loser or whatever, and no one cares. Like, yeah, I'm gonna do, but like, so like, why would I not take advantage of that? It's just like a foreign concept,
I think of St. Louis as easy top 10 sports city in America, right? Top 6.
Yeah, it's definitely top 10. Where you want to put it after that? If we still had a football team, or
Yeah.
we had the third, so it's obviously baseball and hockey. But going to a Blues game, the hockey games are my favorite. I don't know. I mean, being probably a Bruins fan, I assume.
Yeah, I'm a Bruins fan.
The
I'm a bad Bruins
Bruins,
fan. I'm a Bruins fan.
but that's the hockey environment is like
Hockey live is the best live sport.
It's unreal, and playoff hockey is like there's nothing like it. There's absolutely nothing like it. Let me see if I missed it. Eagles. They were his Ray Bork and Cam Neely.
I think the most embarrassing thing Boston ever did was like our mini parade for Ray Bork winning a championship in Colorado. That one stunk. That's when he still sucked at sports, and we had to cling to Ray Bork's accomplishments.
I do know how it is. I've had stretches of really, really bad sports in of my teams. The worst was actually, if you remember, the Mark McGuire and Sammy Sosa summer of chasing down Roger Maris. Right? Yep, chasing down Roger Maris. So it's so funny because that just was the rage. Like McDonald's had, you got the Happy Meal figurines. Deal ever. It was insane. But they both sucked. Both teams were horrible.
Interesting. I didn't remember that.
Yeah, it wasn't a playoff race. The reason
I would have told you that the best teams in baseball.
Yeah, exactly, because that's all you remember. Probably, I don't know who won the World Series that year. I just know that McGuire and Sosa, were chasing down, and Griffey was in it for a little bit. He tailed off, but they were bad. They were bad teams, and I almost feel like that's not something that could happen anymore. But it's a fun kind of aspect of the whole fandom thing. Just want to make sure I
divorced myself from baseball after the Mookie Betts trade and LeBron owning a piece of the Red Sox. I'm done. I cheer for the White Sox, I guess, but I've actually never watched them play.
Why is that? Why it was Mookie your guy and then you're anti-LeBron, or what was the?
I'm very anti-LeBron. Just in general, Celtics Cavs, Celtics Heat was a big rivalry, and he's bad at PR. And Mookie, the team spit in my face. They don't give a fuck about me. How much money did that save them? A couple, 10 million. I think I've actually done the math and looked at all the trades and who they signed, this, that, the other. It saved them $50 million. Who cares? Who cares? And then, LeBron is a Yankees fan. To sell him part of the team as a Boston villain is just disgraceful. The ownership clearly just doesn't give a damn about me. So why would I support them? And it was just time. Yeah, it's just a whack team. I don't like them.
But so the White Sox, how did we get to the White Sox?
Coolest hat.
That is I love your approach to the sports. You have the super mega fandom, right? With Celtics, Patriots, and then it's well, why did you pick your baseball team? Well, I like their hat.
Yeah, I mean, their jerseys are sick. I like Tim Anderson. Tim Anderson's a cool guy.
You want to talk about swaggy player. Tim Anderson is elite level swag, and also he'll put the clowns like Josh Donaldson in their place. So and they act like idiots.
That was a fun episode.
I love those guys. So we've kept you long enough. We've gone a little bit over. Was there anything, what's coming down the pipeline that you can talk about? What are things looking like for you with Sportsbook, with how's best ball fit into all that? Just kind of some closing thoughts on what we're looking at for, we're at the beginning of the biggest fantasy football summer of all time and a huge summer for Underdog too.
The puppy is soon. The first puppy is soon. The sizing is on the website. We expect it to fill pretty fast. We'll do another one, not immediately after that, but with those first two, we've grown so damn fast from last year to this year. We've already we've done more entries than we did in BBM1 already. So it's really hard for me to know sort of how fast things are going to fill and how to size things. So we'll get a good feel with these puppies on sort of how fast things fill and then how many of those we'll do over the course of the summer, how much bigger they'll get. And then I hope along the way that outside of the puppy and outside of Best Ball Mania and a high stakes tournament, that we can do at least one, if not two, small creative things, really just for the people who are watching this stream right now. Yeah, just the nerdiest, most hardcore, most different stuff we could possibly do just to freshen it up. We'll keep launching new sports, just like for Pick'em and stuff. We just launched WNBA, we just launched NASCAR, F1, and then I hope that we just did golf drafts, which are really fun. And it's maybe the most innovative thing we've ever done, in that there's no other website for us to look at. Like, hey, how'd they do these golf best ball tournaments? So like scoring and like how big the contest should be 6 drafters, should be 10 drafters. Like, what's too hardcore? Like, do you know the 60th golfer in ADP right now? Have you ever heard of this guy? That's really how we do it. It's like we get the people who watch golf in a room. We're like, hey, have you heard of this guy who's ranked 60 overall? It's like, yep. It's like, all right, so we can probably have like 6 drafters draft 10 people. So hopefully some fun tournaments. By World Cup next year, we hope to be doing some cool stuff by then.
Awesome. That is awesome, and huge shout out to you guys with embracing, like you said, a totally new format with golf, which I loved.
You played it?
I know very little, but yeah. I know it's something I want to do a lot more. Unfortunately, this is which is weird to say, this is a busy time, but it is a busy, what do you mean fantasy football is busy on May 20th or whatever? Well, that's where we live. This is the world that we're in now. But the F1 stuff, I'm a big F1 fan, and just embracing all of that is awesome.
Yeah, just in general, the way that football fans approach fantasy football, I think there's a place for that with almost all sports. I would love the golf fans to be able to have the same experience with golf that I have with fantasy football, or soccer fans to have the same experience with soccer that I do with fantasy football. It's different because football's so nice. It's once a week. It's like you set your lineup. It's very clean. But basketball, you don't have to do any of that. So hope to make it work for the other sports as well.
I mean, I've said repeatedly that the thing that really and truly got me hooked on best ball was actually the NBA playoff contests that you guys
playoff best ball's the best. It's our best game.
It's by far
anyone who plays it knows it's our best game. It's just it's like futures mixed with fantasy, and there's the fun stacking aspect to it.
It's by far it's unsolvable. First of all, completely point blank period unsolvable. We may get 5 years down the road and we'll be talking about the NFL stuff, and it's we know about the way we should do all these different things. The playoff stuff is freaking is absolute anarchy, and we're seeing that this year too. Especially if the Warriors would have won last night and swept, you get this chaos that it's how many teams are there's 94-man final, how many are even getting there they can field a team?
Yeah, because Steph was going super late, I think, because he was hurt at the time. They didn't know how long he was going to be out. And
then Luka, same thing. We actually got word that he was going to miss time, and then he starts plummeting. And so there's all these fun aspects of that game. And I think that game in particular, the playoff stuff, is my favorite and what I'm most bullish on. But it's an example of what you guys are doing and what the potential is in this space that I'm most excited for. I don't really give a shit how big you make Best Ball Mania for next year, 10 million, 5 million, 15 million. That doesn't really matter to me, but it's all this other stuff, right? Launching F1, launching PGA Best Ball, the playoff contest, the rookies and sophomores, and then God knows what else you guys are going to come out with. That's it. That's why in 5 years this thing is going to be so big, not because you scratched out a couple more million on Best Ball Mania.
I tend to agree.
So thank you, Rudman, for joining. This was awesome. I think the people really loved this one too. Don't tell them, more than Josh and Hayden. There were more comments and more feedback. We won't tell them that though. But again, thank you for joining. We'll get you out of here so that you can get to the Celtics game and actually be the only fan there cheering yeah, exactly. I'll be back. For everybody else, I will be back tomorrow. Best Ball Theory, where we dig into some strategy, and then Friday back with some more drafts. So for Rudman and for myself, and apparently for this dog that is right here trying to get in the picture, we'll catch you guys later. See ya.